So today I'm going to talk about a concept called Bitcoin staking. This is different from an academic talk because I'm not going to focus so much on, so the core technology behind this is consensus, but this is also a product that I've been building in Babylon, which I've been working on leave from Stanford in the past year. And so I'm going to focus more on the product rather than the consensus, although the core is the consensus. And the consensus is what gives the security to the protocol, which is, I think, super important. All right, so staking is now an industry, okay? So 5 years ago, 6 years ago, proof of stake network is still in the infant stage, but over the years, it has developed into a staking industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And so if you talk about an industry, then staking is essentially security. Its job is to provide security to blockchain. And so a very natural question is, what's the cost of the security? Okay, so for every blockchain needs security. It needs to pay for the security. And so we can look at the cost of security because now there are many blockchains, proof of stake blockchains out there. And you can see that the cost of security can be measured in terms of the yield that you provide to the stakers, to the proof stakers. And here we list the yield of a bunch of existing blockchains, starting with ETH on the left-hand side, so roughly in the order of big to small. And on the right-hand side, you have smaller blockchains like Osmosis, etc. And you can see that the yield that these blockchains pay to stakers is pretty high. Ranges from, Solana is about 6-7%. Smaller blockchain like Osmosis is 16-20%. So this is a pretty expensive endeavor to provide security. Now, if you look at these numbers, then you say, okay, where does this yield come from? Most of this yield comes from actually inflating the token. And inflation, in general, is a bad thing, right? So inflating the token is a huge cost to the network. And so we should be worried about this cost of security. Okay. Now, the observation here is that in most proof of stake blockchain, the security is provided by a native token. So like the examples here, they're all provided by the native token. But actually, the advantage of the field now says the following. Security does not need to be provided by the native asset, okay? So you have a native asset, it may be useful for other ways, for other means, to do governance, to do other things. But is security really a very good use case of the native asset? And I think the first talk, Tim's talk on restaking already gives some hint that there's no need necessarily to have a native asset. It could be a remote asset. So once you start thinking from this point of view, right, which is proof of stake chains needs capital collateralization to secure it, but the capital doesn't necessarily need to come from the native asset. You can ask the question, okay, you can look around the crypto world. What is the best asset? What is the best asset to provide the security? And I would like to argue that the best asset is actually Bitcoin, okay? Now, Bitcoin is the largest asset by far in crypto, okay? So number one is that there's a huge supply of asset. And as we know, when you're in a marketplace, whenever there's something with a huge supply, tends to be cheap, okay? So I would like to argue that Bitcoin asset is not only cheap because it's huge supply, but it's cheap for a very interesting reason, which is most people buy Bitcoin to hold it, right? They're not buying Bitcoin because they're expecting to earn 10%, 20% APR, okay? They're buying it to hold it because they believe that because Bitcoin itself is not inflationary, the value will be retained and maybe even increase in the future, okay? So therefore, people are buying Bitcoin to hold it anyway. And so you look at the actual yield that Bitcoin owns. Here's a case study on a specific sector of Bitcoin called wrap Bitcoin. You can see here that the yield that these Bitcoin hold is minuscule. It's like less than 1%, okay? So these numbers are hugely different from the yield that the altcoins are getting from staking. So this project, Bitcoin staking, is essentially based on this observation that Bitcoin could be a very cheap asset to provide security to proof of stake chain. Okay, and so the technology that we built is essentially to enable this marketplace of Bitcoin holders on one hand and proof of stake systems on the other hand, and to enable this security. Okay, so this is a two-sided marketplace. Okay, so you can think of this picture as like two-sided marketplace enabled by consensus technology. Okay, so why is consensus technology important? Because we want this two-sided marketplace to be trustless. So in crypto, trustless is a very overused term. Every other product is trustless, okay? But you never know what it means. But from a consensus person point of view, this is really trustless technology. Meaning what? Meaning you don't need, there is no middleman, okay? There's no custodial in the middle, okay? That provides the security that is enabled by the Bitcoin holders onto the proof of stake chain. Is entirely guaranteed by consensus and cryptography. This is what trustless means. Okay, so the two-sided marketplace, okay? So we are creating a two-sided marketplace enabled by consensus. A two-sided marketplace is only stable if it's of benefit or value to both sides of the marketplace. Otherwise, you cannot get a stable marketplace on the long term. On the short term, maybe you can give them some incentive, but on the long term, it won't work, okay? So let's understand a little bit why this two-sided marketplace stable. Okay, first, all right, it enables a way for Bitcoin holders to hold Bitcoin for long-term growth, but at the same time earn yield, even if the yield is very low, like 0.5% of 1%, okay? But the important thing is it can earn in a trustless fashion, okay? That means nobody else can steal the money. No custodial, no central third party, etc. On the other hand, proof of stake system now have access to this huge source of asset to provide security. And therefore, it can obtain the security at the lowest cost, much lower than using the native asset. In particular, it will enable new blockchains to bootstrap themselves using this very low source of security, and it can save the resource of the chain to focus on the application as opposed to providing security. Security by itself is not interesting. It's only interesting if you have a thriving economy. And if you have to inflate your currency so much, then you will never have a thriving economy. So that is the two-sided marketplace that we're creating at Babylon, okay? So we have already made some progress on partnership with proof of stake systems. In this example, the Cosmos Hub. So Cosmos Hub itself is secured by Atom, as I said earlier. They're interested in integrating with Bitcoin staking to provide security through Bitcoin and Atom. In addition, they would like to use this to provide security offering to other Cosmos chains as well. So this is one of our many partnerships that we work on. But since this is a technology, so let me go back a little bit for technology. So in cryptography or consensus, security properties are super important, right? But I would like to argue that security properties are super important for the product as well, okay? So here are the three security properties that we achieved, okay? And they are interesting and very much connected to what Vincent mentioned in the previous talk. All right, first, we provide fully slashable security. What does that mean? That means that whenever there's a safety violation, we can guarantee that 1/3 of the Bitcoin stakers will be slashed. So in this setup, the stakers are using the Bitcoin asset to provide collateralization, and we can slash 1/3 of it, okay? 1/3 of it. Now, this number 1/3 was already mentioned in Vincent's talk. And in fact, one can show under some condition that this is actually the best that you can do. You can never go beyond 1/3. And as long as 2/3 of the stake is honest, then the POS changes life, okay? Now, I would like to point out one thing is that the security here is in terms of slashability. So slashability is actually one level beyond accountability that Vincent mentioned. Okay, slashability means that you can actually slash the agents. And I think Tim had a paper which basically says that you cannot actually provide slashability in general to everything. But here we can. And the reason is because the slashing is actually not happening on the native chain. It's happening on the Bitcoin chain. So Bitcoin is like a Supreme Court above this proof of stake chain to provide the slashing. Okay, so that's why we can break the Tim's limit. Okay, number two is a two-sided marketplace. So the first security property says that we're providing good security to proof of stake chains. The second one says that we're providing good security to staker. Who are these stakers? They're the Bitcoin holders. Okay, Bitcoin is like gold. Okay, nobody wants to send this gold to some untrustable third party. And so this protocol provides security. That means that as long as the Bitcoin staker, okay, is honest, okay, then it would be able to withdraw the fund. Very important. The security of a Bitcoin staker does not depend on anyone else in the network, except for the validator that it provides staking to. Very important property. This property is actually achieved in some proof of stake networks, okay? And we can achieve this as well in our system. Okay, number three is fast unbonding, okay? So fast unbonding is an important property we can also achieve. And this property cannot be achieved in proof of stake chain. We have earlier papers where negative results on this. Again, this is using Bitcoin as the Supreme Court to provide a fast unbonding. So these three properties are important from a security point of view, also important for a product. Okay, yeah.
Well, I lose my Bitcoin if my network goes out. I couldn't validate, but I didn't cheat.
No, you will not lose your Bitcoin. So we don't have slash. So we don't slash for liveness. See, we don't slash for liveness really. Okay, so technology. We've written a whole paper on this. We just put up on archive yesterday. So I'll give you a link later on. Basically based on three key ideas. So just briefly mentioned. Okay. So these three key ideas is the first one is cryptography. The second and third are consensus ideas. The cryptography. So the reason why this technology is not so easy to build is because Bitcoin as a chain is dumb. Okay, it doesn't have a smart contract. In particular, if you want to provide slashing, you have to convince Bitcoin to slash the fund. Remember, we are a trustless protocol on Bitcoin. And so we need to use cryptography to make the slashable offense obvious to Bitcoin chain so that the slashing can be done without the smart contract on the smart Bitcoin chain. And so we use a technique called extractable one-time signature. Finality gadget is a very important idea that was advocated by Vitalik a few years ago. We use this idea essentially to convert all slashable offenses, okay, which are quite complicated, in terms of double signing, which can be punished using extractable one-time signature. So in some sense, we combine those two ideas in order to achieve this full slashability. And finally, timestamping is something we've been working on for quite a while, and this enables the fast unbonding.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understood. So you're saying you're implementing slashing with the Bitcoin scripting protocol?
Yes. Amazing, huh?
Impressive.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So I say our technology can secure proof of stake systems. I didn't say proof of stake chains. And so indeed, our technology can secure, in addition to L1s, also L2s, roll-ups. And you may ask why. So let's understand a little bit about roll-up. Okay. So roll-up, in my mind, has three levels of security, three types of security for roll-up. What is a roll-up? A roll-up is something, a chain, layer one, a layer two that sort of obtain the security from a layer one. Okay. So three types of security. One is execution validity, okay? The execution should be valid, and in particular should be valid to convince the L1 so that you can interact with it, okay? And this is usually achieved by two things, zero knowledge and optimistic, okay? So that's not our job. Second, by time stamping onto the parent chain, you can achieve a slow form of security. Why is this called slow? It's because this has to wait for the L1 to confirm, okay? And if the L1 is Bitcoin, it will take an hour to confirm. If L1 is Ethereum, it will take 13 minutes to confirm, 12 and a half minutes to confirm. Yeah.
Sorry, going back a couple slides, are you gonna talk more about extractable one-time signatures?
No.
No.
Okay, you want me to say a few words? I think I have, how many minutes do I have? I have 8 minutes. Okay, I can say a few words. Okay, what is extractable one-time signature, right? Okay, so what are we trying to do, right? What are we trying to achieve this for? Okay. So in typical signature scheme, when you sign a block, okay, your signature is secure, which means that the private key is not revealed by looking at the signature. So that's a secure signature. One-time signature has that property, but there's one additional property, which states that if you sign two blocks, say two blocks on the same block height, okay? Then by looking at the two signatures, anybody can extract the private. So this is a way of essentially slashing for double sign, because if you double sign two blocks, okay, of the same height, then the private key is extracted, and anyone can use that private key to actually spend the state Bitcoin on it.
So not a one-time signature.
Sorry?
Yeah.
It's one time.
Yeah, this is not one time.
Yeah, it's extractable, just to emphasize the fact that we're extracting the private key.
One-time signature is also.
It's a different notion. It's a different notion. Not the one-time signature document.
It is a type of, it is a type of one-time signature.
Yeah, you sign more than one message.
Yeah, oh, by the way, sorry, I'm not claiming that we are innovating on this one-time signature. We're just applying this technology to the consensus
I think
technology.
she wants to clarify the extractable aspect.
Okay. All right, yeah, so, okay, good, all right. So, yeah, so you may ask, right, since I'm already getting security from the parent chain, okay, then why do I need more security? And the reason is because in roll-up, okay, the security from the parent chain is only slow. You have to wait 12 minutes or 1 hour to get confirmation. In typical roll-up, you want to get confirmation instantaneously. As soon as the sequencer, so-called sequencer, propose the block, you want to get quick confirmation, like within 1 second. So in Arbitrum, for example, the confirmation is like a fraction of a second. So this is where a technology like Bitcoin staking can be used, okay? Because then, basically, you can avoid the proposer to try to fork the chain at the fast level. Okay, let's see how it works roughly. Okay, so a sequencer should provide some staking. So stick some Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain to provide security. And its processing is it submits L2 blocks. Okay, propose L2 blocks and submits L2 block to the L1 chain. And on a sequencer will be able to unbond and remove and get back the collateral. A dishonest sequencer, what does it do? A dishonest sequencer will be proposing two blocks of the same height, B2 to the rollup, and B1 to a client. Okay, so the client can say, hey, my money is received. Okay, but actually this money reception is not updated on the rollup. So the sequencer doesn't know that. Well, this is protected by essentially being able to slash for this offense. So this is essentially a double sign offense, but specialized to the case of a rollup sequencer. Okay, again, the extractable one-time signature can be used. So therefore, the technology of Bitcoin staking is not only useful for consensus, but also useful for rollup. In fact, you can think of rollup as a special case of POS chain with only one proposer or one validator, which is a sequencer. Okay, and the interesting thing about slashing is that it actually doesn't depend on how many validators there are. Even in extreme case like a rollup with one validator, you can still slash it. Whereas normally in honest majority type security conditions, Having one validator is no good because if that one validator is not honest, then you're stuck. So that doesn't provide good guarantees. So that's one thing good about going from honest majority type assumptions to slashable assumption. Okay, all right, so I think I better wrap up. Yeah, so one thing interesting, I think Tim mentioned a bit about this, is this concept of ecosystem, okay? So when you build a protocol, a product, what you want is you want many people to build on top of you. Otherwise, you're very lonely by yourself. And if you think about it, Bitcoin staking is like a two-sided marketplace. So we need people to participate in both sides. So here we have right now about 10 liquid staking protocol building on top of Bitcoin staking. So you can think of Bitcoin staking as like the analog of ETH staking. When ETH staking is first built, what is the next protocol that people build on top of ETH staking? It's Lido. Okay, Lido is the next protocol on top of ETH staking. Lido basically provides liquidity on top of the security. And similarly here, on top of Bitcoin staking with liquid staking, we have many L2s which wants to get security from Bitcoin through Bitcoin staking. We have a bunch of Cosmos chains that example I mentioned was the Cosmos Hub. And we are also working with a few roll-up as a service to integrate the Bitcoin staking technology on roll-ups. Okay, good. Okay, so we're launching the mainnet soon. We just launched the testnet. So this is in deployment. We have 100,000 people staked in the first 48 hours of our testnet launch a few months ago. And so I think there's a good level of interest in this project. And yeah, so if you want more details, we have just put up a paper, the scientific version of this work. We call it remote staking with economic security. So this work is essentially how one blockchain can secure another blockchain through the staking. And the key concept here is remote staking. That is, the staking is maintained on one blockchain, the ledger is maintained on one blockchain, whereas the security is maintained on another blockchain. And so that leads to quite a lot of interesting problems that we abstracted away and put in this paper. Thank you very much.